I'm Angela McKinney here at the 2017 Focus on Inclusion Conference with Michael McSheehan from the S.W.I.F.T Center. So Michael, we are very happy to have you here as one of our presenters and a keynote speaker as well. So I just want to welcome you to Indiana.
Thank you, Angela.
And want to know what your experience has been so far. This is your first time at the Focus on Inclusion Conference, so your experience here at the conference as well as working with the IEP Resource Center.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here, first and foremost. It's been a pleasure. What a lively group.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh. To see the overflow room this morning at the conference was most impressive. Particularly, I think, at this time in the field, to see this level of excitement at a conference focused on inclusion was just wonderful. To see that be your circumstance, I was just thrilled. I had very little information about the conference. I haven't experienced it, so I had been kind of chatting up colleagues who have presented for you in the past and trying to kind of find out, so what's the setting like? And it's exactly as they described. I mean, people are eager to learn, showing up ready to learn, really most impressive. It's so well organized. I go to a lot of conferences, so I really appreciate a well-organized conference.
We try.
Yeah, you've got a nice machine, just really very clear. Love that you did the electronic handouts. It's just really quite impressive, and which is consistent with my experience thus far with the IEP Resource Center. I've only had a few interactions with you all, one web meeting with you all, and now being here in person, and everybody has been so kind, funny, smart, engaging, and kind of both, the conversations with you thus far have been both in the big picture of the work in the field, your role, where you're situated, what you're aiming to accomplish, and the specifics of how to pull that off. And that's impressive to see that dual attention.
Are there any specific developments in the field that you think people ought to be aware of, that educators should be paying attention to?
Well, yes.
Of
There are
course.
lots of great things happening in our fields, and some of them may be things that your viewers are already familiar with, but a few things I guess I'd want to say, particularly from the perspective of our center, the S.W.I.F.T Center, School-Wide Integrated Framework for Transformation Center, which, our focus, our purpose is to work with multiple states, districts, and schools to try to bring together academic and behavioral instruction and support to students in a unified system within schools. And I think one of the big shifts that's happening in inclusive education is exactly that, putting the school-wide system for academic and behavioral instruction at the heart of the conversation of inclusion. And then figuring out how everything else supports that. And in our center's work, it is inclusion of kids with disabilities and everybody else. One of our taglines is all means all. And so I think the shift to what we message as equity-based inclusive education is a shift in the field that people should be talking about. Older understandings of inclusion really were siloed in their focus on kids with disabilities. And those have been broadened now to talk about English language learners, both the student who's a struggling reader and the kid who's an accelerated reader.
Gifted and talented.
Gifted and talented is part of an equity-based approach. So looking across race, ethnicity, kids from poverty are all an active part of our conversation and our mission. And I think that brings a new opportunity to school leaders to have a conversation about how does our neighborhood school, how does our district partner with our local families to actually serve and support the kids who do live here. How are we designed to do that? And that's a different conversation. It used to be very much a one child at a time conversation, which put heavy burden on families, heavy resource burdens on schools, pulling back and kind of saying, how do we design an equity-based system?
So this is all about that multi-tiered system of support.
Multi-tiered system of support is the heart of the conversation in equity-based inclusive education. I think that's an important shift for educators and administrators to know about. If I can add
You can.
One other thing I would put
Please.
in there, and I don't think it's new, but it's something I want to continually reinforce in every part of my work. And it came up in today's sessions, the power of coaching in schools. Particularly being in the context of this professional learning event and thinking, what are the supports that these educators will return to in their local schools? What's the system of bringing together educators across roles and responsibilities to support each other to implement good practices? If it's professional learning communities or formal instructional coaching like a Jim Knight model, but what will help educators extend their learning here into practice in the classroom? I just think is really important for us to put our eye on how do we organize our resource allocation to support that in schools. We don't want our teachers to leave here and go back and feel alone
Right,
in trying new practices.
right, because we're all in this together.
Very much so.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Angela.